And we welcome you to another edition of This Is Wrestling. It is Lee Versage alongside ZFG, Zach McGibbon, All Out AEW pay-per-view. And we will look into, well, some of the gory details of it. Zach, how are you today?
Doing pretty good, Lee. Looking forward to chatting about this pay-per-view. A lot happening. Blood and guts happening on this show. So, but not the actual match type, the different kind of blood and guts, the actual blood and guts. But no, I'm really looking forward to discussing this show and everything that it has to offer.
So, did you watch it on Saturday night? Because I personally, with a few of our friends, Ben and Chris and Tanner, got together on Sunday night, and incredibly 24 hours. Well, I mean, Tanner's so young that of course he couldn't possibly not see something and go on social media for 24 hours. But I think Ben, Chris, and I were able to not have any spoilers and go into it 24 hours later like it was live.
Nice.
Did you watch it Saturday night?
I did. I watched it live as it was happening. I, like Tanner, have a hard time avoiding the spoilers, so I figured that's why I usually try and catch it live, because usually it finds a way to get back to me, whether it be social media or people texting or messaging me about ankles. So,
well, look, I was concerned about this pay-per-view and I'm trying to be fair here, right? Because I feel sometimes we really do side with the AEW side as opposed to the WWE side, even though WWE is doing better business right now than AEW. And I really try and be fair. And I was quite critical of, and have been, of some of the PLEs in the WWE, especially that are outside of the country, or I guess in different countries in France and in Germany and Australia, for the very predictable shows. And I was worried that All Out would be that. Turns out I was right. So that to me, not so good. But obviously the headlines here are going to be the severe angles, and did AEW push it too far in not one but two different angles at the end of the program. And I think that's what a lot of people here are gonna want to hear about, want to hear your opinion and my opinion, and talk about. As this pay-per-view was going along until the end of the last sanction match, I was very critical of this show, just because, yes, there were some really good matches, but it was like a WWE PLE. Very, very predictable, not really anything going on. And then the two things they did certainly are newsworthy. So let's get right into the main event first, and then we'll talk about what happened in the AEW World Title match after that. But Hangman Page and Swerve Strickland, we knew it was going to be a blood feud. We knew it was going to be hopefully a payoff with one of the last matches between these two, and Hangman Page burned Swerve's house down. We talked about on AEW Dynamite. And these two go into the cage, and Zach, they not only beat the holy hell out of each other, but there was a couple of things near the end that were like, wow, that's crazy. So before we get to the specifics, what did you think about the main event?
I liked it. It was a different feel to the main event than what we saw with the previous matches between these two. It was a little bit more deliberately paced, a little bit more methodical. And the way that it kind of was laid out. I liked the match. I will say, though, I thought the Texas Death match was better of their previous matchup. I enjoyed that more from a personal taste standpoint, but certainly the violence in this was not held back. I wouldn't expect anything less from these two, considering the feud that they had and the fact that they're in an unsanctioned lights out steel cage match. I felt like that kind of gave it away on how violent it could be. But I thought this was a really good way to end the main event. I know I was the lone person that picked Swerve Strickland to win, only because I thought that they could extend this out more and really just kind of torture Adam Page here and go in a different path. But the way that they did that angle at the end, we'll discuss it more here, but the way that they did that angle at the end kind of puts an end to this chapter of the feud and has Hangman Page the victor. And I think they'll obviously rekindle this in the future, but gives them a break for the next couple of months before they inevitably clash again.
A lot of violence. And before we get to the very end, did you think they were risks worth taking, and did they pay off? I'll ask you specifically about a couple of cinder block spots where both men took them at some point, one square on the back, one kind of half on the back and scraping the back of Adam Page. Did you like the use of the cinder block in this match?
Definitely wasn't expecting the cinder block, but it definitely grew my investment in this. I knew kind of going in that this was going to be a feud between both these people not like each other. I mean, hell, a house was burned down in this feud. Somebody invaded another person's home in this feud. The Texas death match happened in this feud. Like, I wasn't too shocked that it would go to the length of violence that it did. To be honest, I'm unsure why people are so shocked that it got to this level of violence. But, yeah, the cinder block spot, it was definitely quite the visual. As you mentioned, landing on the lower back there was Swerve Strickland taking that kryptonite crunch. It was quite the visual. It certainly got me invested. I winced when I saw that. So, I didn't really look at it as any different from any other.
Well, there was two of them, right?
Yes,
I mean,
there was
Adam
that
Page,
one, and I guess you're going to talk about that hypodermic needle spot.
Well, no, I just meant the two cinder block spots.
Oh,
Adam
yeah,
Page,
yes.
Adam Page did take one where he kind of didn't land on it, but did scrape himself quite badly.
Oh, yeah.
On the side of it. I don't know. Like, again, these matches aren't everybody's thing. It's not my thing personally, but
yeah,
I do enjoy when it feels like two people really despise each other and hate each other, and there's a reason for the two to hate each other, and I like that part of it. I guess I just don't. There's a certain way to do these matches, and I think there's a line that is sometimes crossed, and for me it just became a little methodical and a little not over the edge, but just I'm not sure why they're doing those things. And the Daredevil wrestling, Darby Allin's part of it all the time. People do things all the time to take risks and to wow the crowd. I'm just not sure the risks that they were taking were gonna be able to pay off with the wow factor. We'll get to the end here in a second.
Sure.
But I mean all of the other spots in the matches, specifically the cinder block ones. Did they pay off for you?
For me, it did. I thought it did pay off at the end, because you have people talking about it. And if there's anything that AEW has done with these pay-per-views of the past, we've seen it with, the Jon Moxley Kenny Omega match, is having that discussion and showing that they're different. So I wasn't as, with the cinder block stuff, it didn't bother me as much. I was more turned off by the needle spot than the cinder block spot, to be honest with you. That one felt like it was a little bit more gratuitous. The cinder blocks one for me was like just the levels that they're willing to go to try and hurt each other. The needle spot was more just, I think that they were trying to go for that visual, and I felt like that they were trying to go more for shock value in that than I did for the cinder block spots. So, yeah, it didn't bother me as much. But as I was watching this, like, I knew that people would have some pushback to it because it is such a violent match, and we don't usually see that kind of violence in mainstream, for lack of a better term, professional wrestling. So, but considering that what the feud was and what we were going in and the expectations that have been set in this feud, it really didn't bother me, and it was kind of what I've expected, and for me it paid off. But I could understand why people would be turned off because it is a level of violence that you don't usually see on mainstream wrestling.
So let's talk about the syringe into the face of Swerve Strickland.
Yes.
I didn't like it.
Me neither. I could live without it.
This to me is not the getting people talking thing. It's, wow, they did that? I don't really want to see that.
Yeah.
So for me, it didn't get there. I don't know if a lot of fans feel this way or not. It just didn't do anything for me. And I was like, really? That's the end? That's the end. So it missed the mark for me. I didn't like it. I thought it's not that it was way over the top, Zach. It was just not my taste at all. And that's how the main event of a pay-per-view ended, with something that I was just like, really? You did that?
Yeah.
That's how you chose to end it? So I get it. There's some shock value there. There was certainly some shock value in where I was watching it with other people, but it's just not for me. How'd you feel about it?
Yeah, the needle spot I could do without. That one felt to me like they were just going for shock value on that one, as opposed to the other spots where I felt like it was part of the match in a weird way, because these two hate each other, and the lengths that they're both willing to go to try and show that they hate each other comes through. The needle spot I could do without. That was just them trying to get a visual. So I could do without that one. And then, of course, that chair shot at the end, right to the head. Again, a gimmick chair. They went for the shock value. It sounded like I've never heard a chair shot like that in pro wrestling in terms of the sound that it made at the end, and obviously the visual of the chair hanging around Swerve's neck at the end. That spot also didn't really bother me as much as it would, I think, for others, but I'm with you, lock and step on the needle spot, because I felt like that was just them taking it one step too far.
So the chair shot, okay, it's, again, there's some skepticism and CTE and concussions and all of that kind of stuff, and it might be a gimmicked chair. My biggest problem is that they missed the shot.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest things to happen in the match, you didn't really see it. You heard it. You saw the chair around his neck afterwards, but you didn't really see it. And yeah. I don't know if that was on purpose, if that's just a bad mistake, or what that is. I think both of those things are inexcusable from a standpoint of, like, if you're going to do this chair shot, show the chair shot, like, show it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go away from it. So did you do it on purpose? You either did it on purpose and that's a mistake, or you missed it and that's a mistake. Yeah. But either one are mistakes. And I don't really know how that pays off when most of the people heard it, saw the chair around his neck, but didn't see it.
Well, I've heard the theory that it was done on purpose because they wanted the sound of the chair shot to resonate as opposed to the actual visual impact. Like, I've heard the theory being thrown around that they purposely did it because you saw all this stuff, but in this case, the chair shot was so graphic. Like, even after everything that's happened, that was so graphic, and you heard what happened, that they had to pull away. Even AEW had to pull away from that. I've heard that theory, and I don't disagree with that premise or that idea, because the sound of that chair shot, again, was quite the impact. I personally have not heard a sound like that from a chair shot in quite a long time. And so from that aspect, for that intended effect, I think it works. But I'm with you in the sense that if you're going to do that, I think the visual works with that as well. But I can understand the idea of, like, it's so graphic you pull away and you just hear it, and you don't have to visualize it. You could just you could hear it. You could just visualize it in your head on just how graphic it was. So yeah, that's how I kind of view it. from there?
So, we get the, Swerve Strickland signs the contract and the big contract, and it's not quite a Dak Prescott contract, but hey,
Right.
who is?
Right. How much guaranteed money is in that contract for Swerve?
But Swerve's going to get some time off. I think I just would have done it differently.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would have done the syringe. I don't think I would have shown the chair shot. To me, I actually think they had a really good thing going. I think the end should have been Adam Page pulling out that shard piece of wood from the house, the burnt piece of wood from Swerve's house, and sticking it in his forehead like, for old school wrestling fans, was it Magnum TA and Tully Blanchard?
Yep.
Sticking it right in the forehead until there's no choice but to just pass out or give up, but doing it with a piece of wood from Swerve's house, to me, has way more impact than a syringe, a chair shot that I didn't see. So, look, this whole match was not what I love about pro wrestling, but it is what some people love, and sometimes feuds build up to it, and I understand that process, so I'm not going to crap on that. It's just the execution of it still, for me, was not where it needed to be. I thought at the end of this night, even after watching, and we'll talk about, there were a couple of really good matches on this card, but I thought at the end, no matter what, we still were going to be talking about the match between Hangman and Swerve. And I don't know, I haven't really gone online to see the I'm sure people were vocal about it in some different ways, but it, unfortunately, as you said, the Texas Death Match, other matches in this feud, I would tell people to go back and watch the psychology. I would go back and watch, some of the risks that they took, and just high drama, like between two guys that have a ton of chemistry. And I didn't come out of that match going, boy, I'd recommend that match. Even though there was a syringe at the end I didn't like, I would really recommend people go back and see that.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't. And that's a fail, because when you've provided all of this stuff, I get it. There's a lot to live up to. They've wrestled a few times before, and they've all been really, really good. So there's a lot to live up to. But hey, you're in the main event. No titles on the line. Unsanctioned. There's always pressure. And so I just didn't think it paid off. I wouldn't tell people to go back and watch this match. I think if you like some of the gory stuff involved in wrestling, then fine, you can go back and look at some things that we haven't seen in a while. Yeah, sure. If that interests you, have at it. But for me, I just look at other matches that these two have had and go, yeah, man, you got to see this. And Saturday Night at All Out was not one of those. And I just think that if it's the culmination of a feud, at least for a while, you can always go back to it. But if it's the culmination or temporary culmination of a feud, I would hope it's something you would want to go back and watch. And for me, it isn't. Would you recommend it to people?
You see, that's an interesting question, because I am torn on that. I probably not as much as the Texas Death Match, so I'd probably say no in that sense. I think if you want to tell somebody, hey, you want to see a violent pro wrestling match on mainstream TV or mainstream pay-per-view, whatever, I would say yes. But in terms of, like you mentioned, with psychology or anything like that, if you're going into that one looking for something with that sort of psychology, I wouldn't recommend this match at all. A lot of it did feel like the needle spot especially definitely felt like shock value. Some of the other spots I can accept as being part of the escalating violence, and again, these two not liking each other. I think I liked this match more than you did. but I can understand why people wouldn't like it. But I will say this. I am glad that AEW is kind of going back to what it was doing in the early, when it was starting, when 2019, 2022, where it would push that line and would push the audience and say, hey, we're going to do this, and you're either going to like it or you're going to talk about it or whatever. But we're going to try and do something that's going to make ourselves stand out here. So I've been preaching about this with AEW for the last couple of months, where I wanted that feeling back. And from this match, sure, were there things I liked about it and things I didn't like about it? Of course. But I'm glad that it's them trying to push the bar and say, this is what we're going to do, and we will, brace for impact on what the reaction will be, but we're going to go out there and try and define ourselves here and say this is the promotion that we want to be, and makes ourselves stand out. And if some are not going to like it, well, that's fine. There will be fans that will like this, and we'll come back to this. So, so that's kind of how I view this main event.
Yeah, and that's a very fair point, and it's different from mine, because I'm looking at it from a point of view where I really like Swerve Strickland, and I really like Hangman Page. I like the character. I think Hangman Page is a better wrestler than a lot of people give him credit for. Still, I love both of these guys. I have loved their other matches. I have been like on my feet, on the edge of my seat with these two and their chemistry. On Saturday night, I just wasn't. There was some shock value and there was some good stuff, but I wasn't at that place that I've been when they've wrestled. And sometimes I'm looking at it like, okay, who are the best wrestlers in the company? Who are the guys that have the best chemistry together? And okay, well, give me their feud. Give me a couple of matches from their feud, and I want to watch them. And this just wouldn't be one of them. And that bothers me, because this should have been the culmination of it. I wanted it to be that. And it wasn't. So anyway, Hangman Page does win. And you did pick Swerve.
Yes, I did.
And just want
that
to point
was
that
my one
out.
Incorrect on this show.
Yes, but I had zero incorrect.
Yeah.
Zero incorrect.
I know.
Perfect score. And do you know what I don't want? And I don't want to go 1 for 10, because that would just make me look like an idiot and not know what I'm talking about. But this pay-per-view is a very easy pay-per-view to call. Just like for me, Bash at Berlin and the other ones that I've talked about. And that bothers me as a fan of wrestling, because I want some unpredictable things to happen. I want to go in I think I know, but I don't really know. And I'm probably going to be right on most things, but there are going to be a couple things that, they go the other way. I want that as a fan. I don't want it to be so predictable. And this is the first show in a long time that I felt like was very predictable from AEW. Or maybe I'm just a genius. I guess that's
Poffo over there.
Yeah, I guess that's possible too. Okay, so that's the main event. Look, you're gonna have to explain to me, because there's just a lot of it that I don't get. I don't get the fact that this was one of the most predictable routine shows with some great matches, but routine shows we've seen in a long time. And then the crowd is chanting something, and you can give me the exact chant, like, you're a murderer.
Yeah. This is murder.
This is murder. When Jon Moxley put a bag over the head of Bryan Danielson 3 minutes before all of this violence, and you always rant, and I hope that you're going to get to this point, but you always rant if a producer ever talks to another producer, ever. And it's like, no better example than nothing happening all night long. No interference, just wrestling. And then 3 minutes before an unsanctioned lights out, we're not responsible, there is going to be insane things that you are going to see match. Jon Moxley puts a bag and tries to kill Bryan Danielson and the crowd is chanting, "This is murder." And then the announcers at the end, well, that concludes our sanctioned portion of the night. Let's get to the unsanctioned portion. And I'm like, so the sanctioned portion ends with somebody putting a bag over another guy's head and trying to kill him, and the crowd chanting, "This is murder." Oh, good. The sanctions are over, folks. Now it's time to turn it up. Hated this. And I hated it because I like Bryan Danielson and I like Jon Moxley and I don't really like Claudio and Wheeler, and I was glad to see them lose fairly easily at the beginning of the show. But this was, if you're looking for a shock value thing, why would you do something like this right before a match that's going to feature cinder block spots and syringes and crazy stuff? But then you're going to put a bag over somebody's head right before it. I hated this. I get that they wanted Moxley and Danielson in the feud. I'm interested in that feud. I want to be into it. I just hated the timing. I didn't like the paper bag thing. I mean, you actually are trying to kill somebody, and the crowd chanting "This is murder" to me is not good for AEW. No matter how many people tell me that, oh, it's great. No, it's not. And I didn't like the paper bag thing at all. And then even more so, I hated the timing. Oh, did I hate the timing of this? Oh, God. So anyway, those things were tough for me to like this. And oh, by the way, Jack Perry had another ordinary match that people said he needed to step up and he needed to be great. I did not think that was the case. I thought he was good. And I think Bryan Danielson carried him just like we all thought. And nothing really happened in this match that led me to believe that Jack Perry is going to raise his level and be more than just a mid-carder. That's my feelings on Bryan Danielson beating Jack Perry in what they called the other main event, which was not the main event.
Correct. Yeah, so just to clarify, you didn't like the angle and you didn't like the timing of this angle.
I didn't like the timing more than I didn't like the angle, but okay. I didn't like the angle.
Gotcha.
But the timing drove me freaking crazy.
Right.
Crazy to do something like this with the crowd chanting "This is murder," and then people coming on saying, well, the sanctioned portion of this event is now done. We're going to get to the unsanctioned portion where bad things are going to happen.
Yes.
Oh, I'm pretty sure bad things just happened.
Right.
So I hated the timing, and I don't love the angle to begin with.
There you go. Okay.
I think there's lots of other ways for Jon Moxley to do that, to be violent, to do a whole bunch of things to Bryan Danielson that he doesn't have to put a paper bag over his head to literally try and kill him.
Gotcha. I just wanted to make sure before I went after this point. I am in complete opposite of you when it comes to this angle. I loved this angle. I thought this was tremendous. This threw me back to the time of Terry Funk putting the bag over Ric Flair on the Clash of Champions show. And when you got me thinking of an old school angle, you're probably, especially involving Terry Funk, you're probably going to get on my good graces on that. I thought this wasn't a shock value angle to me. I thought this was a gripping angle, and the way I was definitely expecting Moxley to turn as soon as he came out to stop Christian Cage from coming in and cashing in, which that I don't like. I can't believe we're doing a cash-in gimmick on this show. I wish they could avoid the cash-in gimmick on AEW, but I figured Moxley would turn. I wasn't expecting Claudio as well to turn. I thought the execution of that, and then Pac holding back Wheeler Yuta, and Yuta trying to reach across and try and go after Moxley, but Pac is holding him back and making sure he doesn't get to him. I thought this angle was fantastic. I loved this angle. So I'm in complete disagreement with you on the angle itself. The timing of this angle, I am more in lockstep with you. especially because the way that they sold it was, on social media, it's like, we're not going to share the video of this on Twitter and blah, 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 all these different social media sites. And now let's get to the unsanctioned cage match and start promoting. It's like AEW on TV, like all this stuff. That consistency aspect is definitely, like, I agree with you there. It's like, if we're going to do an angle like this, sure, maybe Lever Stage will go on review and be mad that the world title match was middle of the card. But if you want to get this angle over, you definitely have to put this a little bit shorter on the card. Maybe switch around some spots. Maybe put Ospreay and Pac in the main event, which we'll talk about in a moment. But I agree with you on timing. It kind of took away from the angle a little bit. And This Is Murder chants, I think those chants, like, are just a product of what's happened with AEW the last couple of months, where they've been a little bit more on the sillier side and they're allowing the fans to get the funny chants in. And when you've got a This Is Murder chant going on a serious angle like this, it's not the greatest reaction you want. And I think that's just a testament to how the stories have been portrayed in AEW the last little bit and how they've trained their audience. So that aspect, I agree. The angle itself, I love this angle. I'm actually surprised. I get the visual with the bag and all that and how it can be shocking to people, but this to me was in the realm of what Moxley would do, and it was definitely an angle that's going to get people talking for a while. So I love the angle. I agree with you on the timing and some of the reaction to it, but I thought this was a great angle. I loved it, especially after having to go through the Danielson Perry match, where it's pretty clear to me with Jack Perry, like, not only did he not step up, but his gimmick still isn't really defined for me. Like, he's the scapegoat. What does that actually mean? Like, can you explain to me, Lee, what it means to be the scapegoat? Because it feels like it's a conglomeration, not the tag team in AEW currently. It feels like a conglomeration of all these different ideas coming together. And so making it to where there's not this central focus on what this Jack Perry gimmick is supposed to be. Is he supposed to be this guy that feels like he's been, outcast by AEW? Or is he supposed to be this petulant member of the group that is the chosen one from the executives in AEW? Like, what are we doing here with this Jack Perry character? So that's where I think a lot of the issues come in as well. Add on to the fact that Perry's just not a main event wrestler. He just isn't. And I don't know if he will ever get there at this point. So I think that just kind of adds on to everything. Danielson, there were moments when I was watching this where it felt like Danielson was wrestling a broomstick, to be honest. Like, he was just wrestling himself. So the match itself, while technically fine, I didn't think the work was bad or anything. It just did not evoke the emotions that you would want in a match like that.
Yeah, I would agree. And look, when you're a main eventer and you're above the mid card, you are there to more than just be fine. You are there to evoke emotion. You are there to bring people along for the ride. Why would I care about Jack Perry? And first of all, I never, ever, ever thought he was going to win. And that's some of the problem. And then, as you said, okay, the scapegoat, sure, he was the scapegoat for all of the issues behind the scenes in AEW a year ago, and he got sent off and sent away, and he went to Japan. Well, now he's back. And he's not really the scapegoat anymore because he gets more TV time than anybody. He's the only guy in the group that doesn't have a title, he's got the TNT title, but the other guys are all considered better wrestlers than him. Now, look, that's a high standard in the Young Bucks and Kazuchika Okada, but don't try and tell me that Jack Perry's on that same level. Don't present him like that unless he is, and he's not. And I think that there's a divide in that group. As you said, he's part of, like, if the elite are the people who are running the company, then Jack Perry's not a scapegoat at all.
Exactly.
He's part of the group that runs the company.
Yeah. So what's he a scapegoat of now? You know?
Nothing. And I agree that it felt to me like Bryan Danielson was wrestling just anybody. I won't go a broomstick because I'll give him a little bit more credit than that, but it could have been a lot of people, and that's not good. I don't want it to feel like it could be a lot of people. I want it to feel special, and it did not feel special. So, yeah, Bryan Danielson retains, and be very interesting to see, like, why did John Moxley want to find Darby Allin now for 2 weeks, and he was just going to do this? Darby Allin does have that shot coming up at Grand Slam in a couple of weeks, but I don't know. Like, it just kind of feels now like, okay, we got Moxley and Danielson. I'm kind of looking forward to it, and I don't really know what Darby Allin's going to have to do with anything. So we'll see how that plays out. I like a feud with Moxley and Danielson here. I think it's interesting. I want to see it. Like I said, I didn't love the angle of the paper bag, and I certainly didn't like the timing. What I did love, Zach, was every time that Will Ospreay gets in the ring, it's special. Mm-hmm. And when he gets in the ring with somebody else that can live or like can stay with him. So it's what Jack Perry should have been with Bryan Danielson, right? Pac can keep up and go and be right with Will Ospreay step for step. And he was, and the match was incredible. And it was an incredible match, not from it's the best match of all time. But as I was watching this, and I was saying to the guys around me, nothing they do is wasted, and everything they do is just perfectly executed. Like everything.
Yep.
It doesn't matter which moveset, it doesn't matter what kind of psychology, they're doing it perfectly. Every single thing isn't just good, it is off the charts great. And when you pile up and you're watching it and you're kind of looking at it in segments of going, okay, in this 2 minutes, what they do, in this 2 minutes, what they do. And it's just, this is perfect, and this is perfect, and this is perfect, and it's building, this is perfect. You get to the end and you're just like, oh my God, like this was an incredible achievement because two guys went at it and got to a different level together. And that's what Will Ospreay can do for a lot of people. It's what Bryan Danielson can do for a lot of people. And there are other guys out there that can do it. But Pac showed that to me, and he is part of this new BCC. Like, Yuta's out, Pac's in. I think that's good. But, man, oh, man, this match was just awesome. The only part that I didn't like about Will Ospreay and Pac was the shots in the back of Ricochet. I'm like, oh my God, what are they doing? Oh, you talk about not needing something, and then Will Ospreay standing in the back afterwards, and Ricochet comes and talks. I'm like, oh my God, stop talking. Like, he hasn't learned how to speak yet, and it just did nothing for me. But Pac and Ospreay is a match I would tell people, you gotta go back and watch this, because this is, as you say, true professional wrestling. There's almost no doubt that you loved this match. I don't know how you couldn't have loved this match.
I don't know how anybody could dislike this match. This was awesome. I loved this match. This was so good. I don't know what else I could really say about Will Ospreay at this point in terms of his match quality and what he's able to put out in the ring. The guy just like what you said, when he's in there, really with anybody, it feels like, but especially a wrestler at this caliber like Pac or a Bryan Danielson in the past or a Konosuke Takeshita, you're going to get the best match on the show with him. I mean, this guy's incredible. And Pac as well, as you mentioned, just everything was so crisp, and the way that it built upon itself, and it was so good. I loved this match, and this was definitely a match that this will be in a lot of people's match of the year as well at the end of the year. I don't think it's my match of the year. I think there are other Will Ospreay matches that might beat it. But again, that just goes to show the caliber of performer that Ospreay is, to be able to just go in there and have these incredible matches. And it's just a surefire bet he's going to have the best match on the show. And right. Pac as well, himself, no slouch either. Like, he went in there and also had a tremendous showing. This was a great match. Yeah, I love this.
And when people get caught up, like, is it the best match of the year, Will Ospreay's best match? I don't really care. I care about, would I tell people that don't watch wrestling or want to get into wrestling, hey, should I watch Will Ospreay and Pac at All Out? Absolutely, you should.
Yep.
And there are more matches that I would tell people to go and watch as well. But this one's on the list, and I don't care where you put it. It's on the list because, as you said, just the crispness and the execution was off the charts good. Like, it's just perfection. When wrestling works and two guys are in lockstep, it's like when people go and they watch theater and they watch ballet or they watch, and everything's just perfect. It's magnificent. And last night, or sorry, 2 nights ago, All Out, it was magnificent between these two. And I thought still, even though that match happened, that we still were going to be talking about Hangman and Swerve, but not for the reasons why it ended up being talked about. And it's still the match I would tell people to go back and watch. But Zach, being such a wrestling connoisseur that you are, what was the second best match on this card?
Second best match on this card for me was the Chicago street fight.
And it's not close. And I want to give a standing ovation and a slow clap to Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale for having a match that I thought, oh my God, these two have to follow Will Ospreay and Pac, and they got to do it in a street fight. Oh my God, this is not good, because I know that they're probably capable of doing some good things, but after that match, the crowd's not going to be into it, and they're going to have a whole bunch of things going against them. And this match was awesome. It was awesome. And unfortunately, this was a match where our host of the night, Ben, he was doing some things. He went inside, he came back, and he basically got back at the very end. And we're like, oh, Ben, you have to watch this match. He's like, oh, come on. Like, I mean, no, you have to go back and watch it.
Yes.
Like, so I'm just so happy for Chris Statlander, who I think has been very underutilized. And for Willow Nightingale, the goofy gimmick, I could do without. I get why it gets over as a baby face and little girls, and I get why it's kind of Bailey-esque from years ago, just the goofiness. But we didn't see goofiness out of Willow Nightingale. What we saw was awesomeness. What we saw was just Willow Nightingale being a wrestler in a street fight, and it was so good.
Yes.
I can't say enough about this match. I mean, unfortunately for them, they had Ospreay and Pac, which was the match of the night. But on another card, this could have been, and put it this way, of the 3 matches from the Chicago street fight, and by the way, the worst part of this match, and I had it pointed out by Le Champion because I missed it, that they called it the Chicago street fight.
Oh, really? Did they say that?
Like, come on. Like, I like, honestly. Like the Chicago, like, yes, we know they're women, but unfortunately for a lot of the men, they were a lot better than a lot of the men last night, or Saturday. I keep saying last night because I watched it last night, but on Saturday night.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm just glowing about this match. It's probably, for me, I'd have to go back and watch Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa again, because it sticks out for a lot of reasons, but I have not watched that match in a couple of years, because it was a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah.
At least. At the time, I was like, that's the best women's match. And in my head, I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of the turning point, for both of those women. But I probably put this match up there. It's one of the best, if not the best women's match in AEW that I've witnessed. That's how much praise I have for these two.
Oh yeah, this is. You mentioned Britt Baker, Thunder Rosa. My instant reaction is this was better than that match. I thought this was a tremendous. What a follow up to the Pac Osprey match. As you mentioned, a standing ovation to these two to be able to put on a match like that after such a high bar being set from the previous match. This was fantastic. I was a little concerned going in because these two, while I think individually these two are good, two great pro wrestlers, the two together, I just haven't felt there's been this chemistry in the ring that's connected, and that will happen sometimes with good to great pro wrestlers where you put them together, just something doesn't click with them. So I was a little concerned. It is a plunder match, so you could get away with stuff a little bit easier, but boy, they blew away my expectations of what this match could be. This was a tremendous match, and I thought both came out great here. Obviously, Statlander got the victory, but Nightingale came out great at this as well. This was my second favorite match of the show. This was so good. And again, everything built. And the thing with this too is it had the story built in as well over the last couple of months. And this was the culmination of that story. I mean, this was tremendous. They took the opportunity that was presented to them and they got a high quality match out of it. And another match I would recommend people go out to see. This will be the best women's match. At least I'll say this. This will be the best women's match from WWE or AEW this year. Easily. I can't envision another match from any wrestler in either company to be better than this. There might be a match in Japan with some of the Joshis that might be better, but I've not been able to catch that. But I could easily say this will be the best match in North America when it comes to the women's matches.
Yeah, I would agree. So awesome job. And I can tell you that it probably won't be a match with Mercedes Moné. Somebody's going to have to start earning her paycheck. And that is her.
Yep.
I thought Mercedes Moné and Hikaru Shida was the worst match of the night. And that follows up Mercedes Moné and Britt Baker being the worst match of the night a couple of weeks ago. Man, I didn't like this. I still hate her finisher. I think she needs to go back to, and the discussion, that we've had, the bank statement, and it's a bad finisher. No one can really take it very well. Sheeta landed on her knees again. I thought this match thundered along. I thought it was boring. I just don't. It's not that it was awful, but it was just. I expect if you're getting paid what she's getting paid, and you're the big star, and Sheeta's a good wrestler, you got to be the star. You got to be the person that we're talking about at the end of the night, because yeah, you had someone come along with you, but you carried them and it was awesome. And I'm not, now she's had Britt Baker and Hikaru Shida, and I'm not putting the fault on Mercedes completely, because did Britt sandbag the match? I've heard wrestlers talk about it. Sounds like they think she might have, but I don't think Shida did. And I thought this match was very pedestrian.
Yep.
Wasn't awful, but on a card that had a lot of different things on it, to me, it was the most boring match of the night.
Yeah. And this was, to me, a match where there's no excuses for Mercedes Moné from the last match she had. Like, you can make the excuses for Mercedes Moné at the All In show. It's like, well, they were after a great match, and Britt Baker, depending on how you feel about her, she's not the greatest pro wrestler in the world, and so you could make. But in this case, this was a match that they were put at a spot where they could succeed, and I'm not as high up on Hikaru Shida as others are. I think she's an all right professional wrestler, can be good, but more than capable of having a good match, especially with a talent in Mercedes Moné, who I've seen have excellent matches. And this was not it. It was there was just no cohesion to it. It just, as you mentioned, it felt like it was plundering along, just kind of getting through. And there were some moments where it wasn't very crisp or smooth. And this was definitely a letdown for me. I was expecting more from both of these two, and this didn't deliver on that sense. And it felt lengthy at points too. So yeah, this was easily the worst match of the show.
To me, the second worst match of the show also shouldn't be these guys. Look, I'll let you talk about it first. I don't have a lot of great feelings about it. I thought it was okay, but I feel like the Young Bucks and the way that people talk, I know I'm hard on Claudio and it's kind of a running gag a little bit, but I just thought that this was, again, I think it ran long to me. I thought it was just okay.
Yeah.
And so with no build up for this world tag team title match, I keep being told that Claudio and Wheeler are really good. I keep watching them and going, all right. And then the Bucks do have the ability to carry people, and I don't think they did in this match. I thought they put their work in, but I expect more from those guys, and I thought that this is just okay. Never a match I would go back and watch. The Young Bucks do retain, and I was kind of glad it was over.
Yeah, it was a match that happened. It was the work was fine. It was all right. But like what you said, it just didn't reach a certain level. And I think with the Bucks too, it's been happening the last couple of months where it's just the matches haven't been there from a team that we kind of usually expect them to be at a higher level when it comes to their in-ring work. And I think it just goes back to this gimmick that they had here with Okada and Jack Perry. By the way, something I forgot to mention as well, the Bloodline, the Elite came out to run in for their match in the world title match as well. So that's also kind of the expectation that they've set here with some of these matches with this group. This match was just, on paper, I was looking at this as like, I think these are two teams that could certainly put on some high level matches, but this was not it when it came to that. It was a match on the card, not necessarily bad. The work itself was fine. It was all right. It just, especially with the caliber of these two teams, I expected more, and we didn't get it. It was just a match on the card.
So yeah, I hope they do something more with the tag team titles, more build up. Speaking of more build up, I would like to see a little bit more build up other than the night before having some guys enter into a 4-way match. Briscoe, Orange Cassidy, Takeshita, and of course Kazuchika Okada. In no way was Okada going to lose a match. Especially as I'm going through it, I'm like, really, is Takeshita going to pin Orange Cassidy and win the Continental Championship away from Okada, and Okada never gets pinned, and he didn't even know who his opponents were the night before? That's a way to make a title.
Yeah. Especially this title. Right.
So I actually enjoyed, I really enjoy all of those wrestlers. When Mark Briscoe's wrestling and doing, some Daredevil stuff and less talking for me, I enjoy him. I thought this match was actually good, and I thought it actually got across what they wanted to, which was an eventual meeting between Okada and Takeshita. And I thought the right guy, we were sort of debating who is going to take the pin, and everyone was saying Briscoe, and I'm like, well, he is the Ring of Honor world champion. I think I might protect him a little bit, make Cassidy take the pin, because he can probably take it and be none the worse for wear. And I would want to protect my Ring of Honor world champion, even though they're not doing anything with the Ring of Honor. He's still the world champion, and he doesn't need to be taking pinfall losses in 4-way matches in AEW. But I guess in a vacuum, this match entertained me when the bell rung, but the build up and the storyline going into it, I thought was not good. And especially for the caliber of talent that's in there, not good.
Yeah.
So I hope they do better. And if we do get a proper build to Takeshita and Okada, then I'm here for it. And this just seemed like a storyline kind of along the way to maybe help it get there. So in a vacuum, I didn't mind this match, but I didn't love anything about the build up, or never in a million years did I think Okada was going to lose. Yeah,
it was well worked, but I mentioned my grievances about this kind of match with this title on the previous show, and that is, it's a 4-way match for a title that was built upon, no outside interference, no disqualification, or rather, people are not going to run in or anything like that. This is going to be a straight up wrestling match, and nothing says straight up wrestling match like a 4-way, I guess. But the work here was fine. It was good. There was better work here than there was the tag match. I could definitely say that. And I've been frustrated with how they booked Okada. Like, he should be better than this. And I know I heard all your arguments on the last show about, he could be, good at any point after this. Like, he doesn't have to stay in comedy, but I feel like if it's going down this route, the one thing I wanted with Okada here is that I didn't want him to go to WWE because I wanted him to avoid the comedy aspects that I was worried that they would utilize with him. So I don't see how he's being used here any differently than how WWE would use him, to be quite honest with you. Maybe he's a little bit better, but if the fact that it's in the conversation for me, I think is a fail. Obviously, I feel very highly on this Kazuchika Okada, one of the greatest professional wrestlers to ever walk this planet, But other than that, like, his work was good. I think if you're giving him a strong program, he will do even better in the ring. To me, this is Okada just kind of slowing down here and saying, all right, I don't need to go 100% here. Like, I could put in 85% and still have a good match. And I think that's what this 4-way was. It was just kind of a collection of different moves coming together here and having good work. But I expect more with how they're treating Okada, to be quite frank.
I hope they treat him better coming up here in the future. I really do. So will they? I don't know, but I feel like I think it's on the cusp. I feel like it is, especially if Jack Perry was not going to work and they gave Jack Perry a lot of time. I don't know. It just feels like maybe it's time to thrust Okada into the spotlight here. Mm-hmm. We have not talked about, and I'm interested to hear your feelings on MJF and Daniel Garcia. I think it was pretty easy to think for both of us, for a lot of people, that, Garcia was going to, get a lot in and he was going to be a big part of it, and he was going to lose the match but find a way to kind of continue the feud. I think that's exactly what happened. Look, I'm a big Daniel Garcia fan. I hated Daddy Magic on commentary. I know that's going to not make some people happy. I hated it. It just felt like a whining friend instead of adding any analysis whatsoever. And I wanted Daniel Garcia to just be a little bit more. I think it's just missing something right now. But, to say like he left MJF laying, and then it's embarrassing sometimes that everything that MJF has ever done in that company, and the announcer like, well, I think Garcia might have gone too far. And it's like, well, just wait for a couple more matches, Tony. And like,
you want to talk about too far?
and then just tell me about too far. Putting down the babyface for going too far over the biggest heel in the company, when all the biggest heel does is do the most dastardly things ever. I didn't like that about the commentary at all. So I thought that this match was good. It just missed a bit of a level for me. MJF is always really good. I thought Garcia was good in this too. I'm not quite sure. Maybe you can explain to me what it missed, if you thought it missed anything. But I'm not talking about this as one of the top matches on the card, and I want to be, because I like both guys.
Yeah, interesting. I think I'm higher on this match than you are. I liked it. I quite liked it, actually. I thought the work was good. It was, similar to some of the other matches, obviously in a much lesser way. There was this intensity to it. They were just like mad, and there's this intensity to it. So I liked it from that aspect. I think maybe the finish has got some people turned off, because they did the finish where MJF got the victory, but then immediately Garcia got his heat back and beat up MJF at the end of the match. And so it sounds like MJF is going to be off of TV for a bit, because he's going to go film a movie, and Garcia hasn't signed yet, so they're just being cautious, like whatever the case may be. The finish they came across might come across a little bit wonky for people, and I can understand that, because it did come across a little wonky for me. But I thought the work in here was very good. I enjoyed it. I do agree with you on commentary, though, not just for this match, but just in general for this show. I thought commentary wasn't too great this show. Usually I don't, pay too much notice to the commentary, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree.
But I thought especially Shivani. Shivani's been having some rough weeks recently on commentary. He's been calling some wrong moves, and Taz just gets a little bit too angry on commentary. It's getting a little too much for me. I actually thought of all the people, I thought Jim Ross was actually pretty good this show.
See, I didn't. I think it's time for Jim Ross to have a match in the middle.
He should go. Don't get me wrong. But
a
like,
match in the middle of the card, I thought there were some parts of the main event where I'm like, oh no, Jim, stop.
So I'll say this. I thought I'll quantify it by saying for 2024 Jim Ross, I thought he was not too bad. I actually liked the way that he sold the angle with the John Moxley stuff and just put over how despicable it was. So I actually liked it from that aspect. But I agree with you in terms of, I commend Tony for being loyal to Jim and respecting his contributions to the business. But again, this is what happens with Tony Khan sometimes, is he's just too loyal sometimes. And sometimes you just got to make that decision, say, hey, Jim, we got to take you off to the broadcast booth. We're going to find something else for you, whether it be an advisor. We'll keep you well maintained. We'll keep you well paid. We respect your contributions to this business, but we got to do something else here and go a different direction. So, but that was my feeling with commentary in general that night. I just didn't think it was at its best. And especially Shivani, I thought was really lacking here. But the match itself, MJF and Garcia, I actually quite liked it. I think I liked it more than other people did. I like the intensity and the feel from it. So,
okay, so that has a problem, and I'm really looking forward to your ranking system here, because
sure.
I'm going to guess that MJF and Daniel Garcia was your third favorite.
It was hovering between that and the Adam Page Swerve Strickland match for me.
Okay, so which one is it?
Probably the Page Strickland match a little bit more.
Okay. So you're okay. Which is awesome, and I think that you like that kind of thing a little bit more. And
yep.
And so, what I would tell you is, if you have a card in which MJF's match and Hangman's and Swerve's is third and fourth on the list, this has not been a very good card. And you can tell me that you like the match between Garcia and MJF, but how many matches did they have? Like 8?
Yeah.
Okay.
Around there. The 8-match card on this show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 8.
Yep.
Okay. So you're telling me 4 of 8, because MJF and Garcia was 4th. The 4th match of an 8-match card was good. You better put this pay-per-view then up near the top of the list if that's what you're talking about, because it couldn't have been that good if it was the 4th best match. That's all I'm saying. But looking forward to your ranking system. This to me had 2 standout performances and a bunch of disappointment. So I'm going to give it 6.75, because I've taken to the
quarter points.
The quarter points.
Yeah.
Because it was way too predictable. I should never go perfect. I'm not that smart. It was way too predictable, and I hate that. And that you're going to get a mark or 2 off for that already. And I thought there were many performers on this card that did not get to the height that they needed to get to. Mercedes Moné, 1. Jack Perry, 2. The MJF Garcia match didn't get to the level that I would have liked to have seen it. The Young Bucks and Claudio and Wheeler never got to where they needed to get to. And then I didn't love Hangman Swerve. You liked it a little bit more. People can talk. It was a different type of match. I get it. Wasn't my cup of tea. So this to me would have hovered around the high 5s or a 6, if not for Ospreay and Pac and Willow and Chris Statlander. But it's still, to me, one of, if not the worst show that AEW has put on this year.
Wow. Okay.
Well, I can't think of another show that was worse. So,
fair enough.
Look, I like AEW better than WWE, and their worst show is probably better than a lot of WWE average to good shows.
Yep.
I'm still taking this show over that.
There you
But
go.
but ranking them in the AEW order of what they have put out this year, I don't think that there's one for me that's worse, and so I can't give it a very high mark. 6.75 for me.
There you go. So what did you rank All In last show? Do you remember your ranking? Because I do not. I think it was definitely in the sevens.
I thought I gave it a 7.25 or a 7.5.
Right.
I don't know if I got to the quarter points. It was hovering around the B- area, and this to me was worse than that. So
gotcha.
So I would go C+. And if Ospreay and Pac were not on this show, oh my God, like it would have been worse. And I shouldn't say that. Nightingale and Statlander was awesome too.
Yep.
So I like both of those. Put it this way: the s'mores that Ben's daughter, May, as they call her, Mabel, made me with 2 graham crackers, 2 perfectly toasted marshmallows with an Aero bar in the middle.
Ooh.
Was one of the highlights of the night.
There you go.
On an AEW show. Okay, what's your ranking?
So I like this more than All In. I like this show actually a lot more than All In. I have been on record here saying I didn't think All In was that great of a show that others have made it out to be. And I thought that card had worse matches on here, on that card, than there was on here. And I'm including the Mercedes Moné Hikaru Shida match. So I liked it more. I want to make Ben mad, because I gave that All In show a 7.25. Just to make Ben mad, I'd like to make it a 7.5, just to really grind his gears and say it's 0.25 better, but it's not 0.25 better. I've got it 8.25. I really like this show. I really like this show. I know what you're saying, and I hear a lot of what you're saying, especially when it comes to predictability, but man, the lowest, there was only one match that I would consider below average. Every other match on here, even if it was not to a high level, I still thought the work here was pretty good. And I thought some of the matches here from a work standpoint were better than some of the cards on that All In show. And that Ospreay Pac match, fantastic. The Statlander Nightingale match, fantastic. I enjoyed the Adam Page Swerve Strickland match more than others. I really liked the angle that they did for Moxley and Danielson, and I liked MJF and Garcia more than others did, I guess. So I'm much higher on this show than I thought I would be comparatively. So an 8.25 from me.
Wow.
I really liked. I believe this is not AEW's best pay-per-view of the year. I would go back to that show that Danielson and Ospreay had their match on.
Dynasty in St. Louis was incredible.
Yes, that was like an 8.75-9. Like, here's my ranking scale. Like, to me, 9 to 10 is like all-timer level. And so it's a tough scale to reach.
Hold on. All-timer level is 9, and this was an 8.25. Are you out of your mind?
This is a really good show.
Are you out of your mind?
This is a really good show.
This show is 0.75 away from being an all-timer.
Oh yeah. If the Mercedes Moné Hikaru Shida match was a little bit better, and this will be talked about in the future.
Punch drunk from Dak Prescott's performance and the Cowboys' performance in Cleveland.
I mean, that was fantastic, wasn't it?
It was fantastic.
It was great.
Most deserving of the richest contract in NFL history. You know what? You got to come back to the pack here. We got to get you back watching with us and try and be able to tell you exactly what you need to be. You can't be watching on your own and giving subpar shows 8.25s when 9 is apparently an all-timer.
No, I'm telling you, Lee, I think this will be talked about for, I will say this. I think this show will also end up on some people's best pay-per-view of the year list. I don't agree with that, just for the record, but it will be on some people's best pay-per-view of the year list. Right. And I quite like this. And there was stuff I liked more. Were there things that didn't land for me as others? Yes, but I can't look at some of the base level of some of the matches and think I was getting a subpar wrestling show. I just can't. Like, I only got one real below average match here, and that was that TBS title match. Everything else, while I would have wanted more, I still got good base level work here. And yes, was there predictable elements to it? Of course, but man, I thought the angle that they did and the matches here were some of the high level matches, like I can't give this anything less than a 7. I'll tell you that. It's an 8.25 for me. I really like this show.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, I think it's interesting. We want to hear from people on what you thought of All Out, because this is one of the biggest discrepancies that Zach and I have had. Apparently, base level predictability suddenly is almost an all-timer. I thought base level and predictability was hovering around average. That's why I gave it an average mark, but apparently baseline is good enough for you, Zach. So
I really wanted to give it a 7.5 just to really make Ben mad.
Well,
just to pop myself, really. But
you know what? As the matches were going on, we were kind of like watching and especially with the last couple of angles, we didn't get a chance to really talk about it afterwards. So interested to hear from all people that watch this pay-per-view and what you thought. We'd love to hear from you in all of our social media channels. Zach, this has been fun.
Yeah, no worries. Can I quickly mention, I was just kind of looking over the card here on Cage Match. Do you want to know what their ranking is out of 10?
Well, why do I feel like you wouldn't have brought this up unless it's going to benefit you? So
it actually might not benefit me.
Okay, what is it?
It is a 9.22 on Cage Match out of 10, based on hundreds of ratings so far, 271 votes.
Yeah, well, Ben's voted 276 times. Okay, well, interested to hear from our listenership if you liked it or you didn't like it. This is fun. I know we both had some time a little bit here today to get it in. You got stuff to do, I got stuff to do, and we're going to reconvene soon. A lot more going on. But this has been fun, an all-out review. Zach McGibbon, we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, for sure. Looking forward to it.
For Zach McGibbon, I'm Lee Versage. Thanks again for listening to This Is Wrestling.